Welcome back to episode 160 of Tim Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe, co-created by Bruce Timm. I am Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And we're winding down here with Static. We got 3 episodes left here. This week we'll be handling the final episode of Rubber Band Man. Lots of thoughts on how this series treats him. We'll be doing that. Plus we got a cool question from Cameron this week. But before that, we got a little bit of news to get into. Want to start out with a really awesome announcement coming out of DC this last week. One of their next direct to Blu-ray / digital features is going to be Batman Death in the Family. Now, for those of you who know, that title comes from the death of Jason Todd, a storyline already covered by Batman Under the Red Hood.
In very, very good fashion.
Yes.
That is, most people rank as the best DC animated film.
Yeah, including us. I consider that to be, that's on par with like the best of the DCAU. So they were pretty clever about this. So rather than completely remaking that movie, they are basically expanding upon it and also doing their first ever choose your own adventure style movie. It's an interactive feature.
Yeah, and fits so well with the Jason Todd kind of death.
Yeah, exactly. So as you're watching along, you basically get to decide like, oh, does Jason die? Does Batman just barely save him? And so it'll spawn out into different iterations. So, in one version, he'll become the Red Hood, as we know from the previous film. Another version looks like he becomes like Red Robin and is sort of on a vengeful approach to go take down the Joker. This looks awesome.
Have you done an interactive film before? Did you do Boulder Bandersnatch?
I did not do
the Black Mirror one.
The Black Mirror Bandersnatch. No. Was it good?
Okay. It is good. It's interesting because, obviously the decisions you make affect how long the experience is. And so it looks like they have enough storylines fleshed out. You're not going to be like, I choose to kill Batman and the movie ends. It looks like whatever path you choose, you're going to get a full story out of it.
Yeah.
Which, like, just thinking about that from an animator's perspective, like, I feel so bad for that team that had to animate 3 movies and I assume the time frame of 1.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to splinter off into 4 different stories, more or less.
Oh God, I hope they got paid well.
Yeah, no, I really hope they did too. Probably not.
Definitely not.
No.
Animators do not get paid anything ever.
No, they really don't.
Except that one time in the 90s they did.
Oh, yeah. That one glorious period in the 90s when everyone was making money. But no, I mean, this looks really cool. It's the same animation, same voice cast as the last movie. And so it looks like there's going to be roughly like 4 different plot threads. And the digital version, at least, will allow you to kind of just watch each more or less distinct storyline kind of on its own, plus do the interactive element. And then it's also going to include 4 shorts that have come out in the last little bit here. Sergeant Rock, Adam Strange, Death, and the Phantom Stranger will be included as well. This might actually make me buy this on Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I it's hard to tell based off the release that I read through, like if everything will be included on both versions. They make reference to like a 5 minutes of content which will only be on the Blu-ray, but they don't say what exactly that'll be. But of course, usually if you buy the Blu-ray, you get a digital download link anyways. So, I mean, if they were looking for a way to kind of like make a bit of a news splash with their stories and to get people excited again, I think they absolutely hit the nail on the head on this one.
Would this have been, because when is this supposed to come out?
Let's see. This is going to be coming out October of this year.
Okay, so would have this been the Comic-Con movie? I feel like it's too far away because usually so for people who don't know, at Comic-Con every year, DC will, what's the word I'm thinking of? Premiere. Yeah. Thank you, me.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. You
will premiere their next animated film for the crowd, and it's usually a very, very fun experience.
Even if the movie's
especially, even if the movie's not, because then the writing staff will go crazy. And it's something that we do almost every year, and we go.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is a little, because usually they come out in August, and it's like we're only seeing it like 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time.
Well, they have Superman Man of Tomorrow as their next one, but that's okay. So that was announced at Comic-Con 20 2019, and it'll be
Right.
it'll be
Yeah.
released in August of this year. So
Okay.
that would have
Okay.
been the Comic-Con movie, which makes more sense. Yeah, because
Gotcha.
although I would have loved to see a Ballroom 20 try and like collectively vote for which option.
Oh my God, he would die so fast.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way Ballroom 20 would keep Jason Todd alive.
It would have been the closest we could have lived to actually experiencing when that comic came out in the early 80s. And it was like, vote
Yeah,
winner.
just pure anger and chaos.
I guess
Like pitchforks would be coming out.
the kind of funny thing is because of that choice to kill him back in the day and then his reintroduction as Red Hood years on, I feel like now people actually love Jason Todd rather than hating him.
Yeah.
But they also love to see him die. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the nail is people can't not enjoy his death.
no, it's the best. There's a crowbar
Yeah.
involved. It's so much fun.
Forehand,
Backhand.
backhand.
No, I am super, super excited for this. We're definitely going to do an episode on this when it comes out because I think this is going to be great. Also, it really makes me want to rewatch Under the Red Hood, which not that it takes a lot of
Yeah,
prodding
same.
to make me want to rewatch that movie, to be fair.
I'm also just very curious about the future of interactive film. Because I think a lot of people say like either VR film or interactive film is the future of entertainment. But I would disagree. I think it's just going to become its own like subgenre of film.
I think it's going to become like 3D back in like the late 2000 early 2010s of like, oh, that was the thing that people were using to try and get butts in the seats. I think it's going to be the same deal in terms of getting people to buy physical media or just to get eyeballs on something. Like that's the difference now is that we have so much content available to us that you have to find ways to get eyeballs on everything, not just getting people to go to a theater, which is going to be even harder. So yeah, I think
Right.
it's just going to become a gimmick with some people doing it better than others. So
Yeah, and it's also something that you can't. That kind of leads into our next news point. It's something you can't really put in a theater.
no, you can't. I can't imagine that working really well because you would have to like have some way for people to vote, which the simplest way would probably have people like vote on their phones, but then you like basically give everyone carte blanche to be on their phone through the whole movie, and that's just gonna turn away people like us who absolutely hate that.
I mean, I can see like it being built into the armrests, have it similar to like that button you have when you're sitting in an airplane to put your seat back.
Oh yeah,
The one where it's either very obvious where it is, or you spend the entire flight trying to find where the button is.
all of a sudden you accidentally like turn down the person's seat next to you, and
Yeah,
yeah, I mean the problem with that though is like that is a pretty substantial infrastructure cost that I can't imagine a lot of theaters being willing to undertake, considering that they're so desperate to make revenue any way they can. Which, to your point, does segue us nicely into our next little bit of news here, which is something that I know you want to talk about because it's totally in the wheelhouse of our favorite thing to talk about, which is the
the future of the film industry.
which of course has to do with the theatrical exhibition window. Cameron, why don't you talk us through what's happening here with AMC Universal?
Yeah, so I don't know how people wouldn't know what's going on from before. AMC and Universal got in this tiff because Universal put a very light-hearted tweet out basically saying fuck all theaters, but not saying that. And so AMC decided to not show any Universal films ever again in their theaters.
Well,
but
it
now
was a
they've-
little bit more complicated than that because essentially it was
No, that was it.
at the simplest version, yes, but to slightly expand upon it, it was because Universal chose to forego any theatrical distribution of Trolls World Tour and only go straight to VOD, which then got AMC up in arms, and then yes, a sniping battle of Twitter responses ensued, resulting in AMC basically being like, "Fuck you guys, we're not going to show any Universal movies anymore."
Yes. And so they've come to a potential agreement, which sounds, it honestly doesn't even sound good for just AMC, but it could really screw up the entire theatrical kind of experience as a whole. So from what I understand, the idea is Universal and AMC have decided to shorten theatrical windows, so how long a theater has sole rights to share a movie.
Exclusive rights, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Exclusive rights to share a movie. And in exchange, so that's what you said, 17 days.
Yeah, it's now down to 17 days.
Which is crazy because theaters don't start making money until day 11 already. So they basically have 1 week to make money. But in return, AMC is getting a percentage of the digital rental cost. So from here, it says potentially AMC is making 10% off of a $20 rental.
Which is interesting, to say the least. I feel like that this move is precedent breaking, but not precedent setting. Because as you pointed out before we started talking, like, this is just one studio and one theater chain. Like, the realities of this are far more complex than just that.
Yeah, and AMC is stated to be the biggest theater chain in the world, so it makes sense for them to be the front runner of these conversations. But, you know, there's a handful of other chains, even just in America, not even internationally, that would also have to be a part of this. Like, I can't imagine Universal splitting 10% to AMC, 8% to Cinemark, 5% to Pacific Theaters. I can't think of another one right now.
So just the Grove, basically.
Yeah, just the Grove and the Americana. I mean, and kind of going down until you just really screw over the small independent theaters who can't get a piece of the pie and are now trying to make all their money off of week 3 sales.
Yeah.
They also don't mention how long this 10% lasts for. Because this is like an indefinite 10% for theaters. Like, I can kind of see that arrangement being pretty good and just like living off residuals forever. Yeah. Especially once you get like 2 years in, that is so many movies you're now just kind of reaping 10% off of. But then at the same time, studios would be losing out on a lot of money in the same way. And of course, that is something they refuse to do.
Yeah. I can't necessarily see other studios going on board with this. To me, what this reads as is a way for AMC to save face after making a really publicly dumb decision to shirk Universal movies.
Yeah.
Like, I think
it was a corporate big dick contest.
It was, and
AMC realized that they are still flaccid.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't have that much ground to stand on, and they didn't have much ground to stand on when they made that declaration back in March, kind of when the lockdowns are first happening. They certainly don't now when they're 4 months further into no revenue, essentially. So I think they were desperate to figure out how their reopening is going to proceed, and recognizing that Universal does have, a slate of movies coming up that are guaranteed box office hits. That, you're guaranteed to get butts in the seats with things like the Fast and the Furious movies. God help us all. And of course, James Bond is another one, just, off the top of my head. So I think they were desperate to come to some sort of resolution and wanted to save face. And so they were willing to take a pittance off of this. And the details are scant, even in the announcements that were made, because I don't think they're worked out yet. But I can't see that this really hurting Universal that much. But it's just a desperate attempt on AMC's part to try and generate some kind of revenue. And to your point, whatever iteration this continues with going forward, if it expands to other studios or expands to other major theatrical markets, I think this is going to ultimately hurt the small exhibitors the most. And the thing is I don't think the studios nor AMC especially care about that. If anything, it just works in their favor to further concentrate and monopolize that distribution.
Yeah. And I have 2 more quick thoughts on this, kind of going with the save face idea. We mentioned last week that international theaters are opening.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, they need to, and AMC is an international chain. So this is their moment of like, okay, yeah, we do need to, keep our theater as open as possible and get as many people in as we can. And so I definitely agree that that's a move they're doing for their international market. A story we covered about a year ago, which it's kind of been stuck in the back of my mind for a while, which I definitely see, unfortunately, playing into this, was it the Paramount Pact or the Paramount Act?
Yeah, the Paramount Decrees.
Thank you. That are now null and void.
Yeah.
Which basically means that studios can buy theater chains. And I definitely, unfortunately, see that being the thing where we're going to get a Universal Universal could buy out Cinemark.
Yeah.
Disney could buy out AMC, because I think they're the only ones that could buy out AMC.
Maybe not right now, but
Yeah, and that's the JPEG move right there. And so I definitely see this vertical problem happening where you're going to have to go to a specific theater for a specific film. Theaters are in a very dark, hard time right now.
No, they are. And I agree with you that the whole landscape is changing so drastically, and the COVID lockdown exacerbated a lot of the existing problems. But I guess if we want to look at it from a slightly positive angle, is this is a first step in finding a new system, right? Because I think we can all agree that the current system as it works of forcing movies to stay in theaters for a really extended window, delaying home digital release, isn't in anyone's best interest, especially the audience. But it does work to keep having the studios and the theaters make money. And so this has the potential, at least, to start shifting the dynamics into a way that makes it better for audiences. It just will take time to see if that positivity can float to the surface amongst all of just the money grabbing crap. So
yeah, which usually the answer is no.
The answer, I mean, look, as I was saying, it's like, look, I'm trying to make a positive spin on this, but the reality is it's probably not going to be good. But I always feel like whenever you can see an archaic system holding on to an antiquated methodology, it's always a bad thing. And whenever you see any cracks in that and any sort of slight progress forward, even if it takes a long time to settle out, it's, has the potential to be a good thing. So, we'll try to find a glimmer of hope where we can.
Very, very last point on this. For like this theater change or potential change for big cities, like LA, I don't see it being a huge change because like the small theaters here are so well known and like such an experience to go to the Vista and El Cap and Chinese and stuff like that. But like back in my college town, back in Kansas, we had one theater.
Yeah.
And if we have this potential vertical integration system where it could be a Universal theater, and you're going to have to drive 45 minutes to go see a Disney movie or go see a Warner Brothers movie. Like it's really going to mess up all those very small town people.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good comparison is we're now reaching that point where if you want to see certain content digitally, you have to go to that company's streaming platform. Like if you want to see Disney stuff, you basically have to go to Disney Plus. Same with HBO Max, same with stuff from Universal and Peacock. Wouldn't be surprised if the theaters eventually end up following suit in a similar capacity. So what fun times that'll be. Hey, you know what? I kind of love the idea of having to go to the New Bev to see the newest Quentin Tarantino movie. So that alone might make it worth it.
Oh my God, he would be so pretentious about this.
But I would just ride along in the shitstorm because I think it'd be highly entertaining.
Yeah, Tarantino would. I feel like Tarantino would try and buy out theaters on his own. Like it would be the major studios and then just like Tarantino on the side.
I think if he were ever to do,
like, I'll give you $50 and 60 bags of fake blood.
I think what we can expect is that all seats in his theaters will be recliners with the feet way up in the air, and there is a no shoes policy.
Absolutely.
Can't wait for that.
I don't think he smokes, but he seems like a person who smokes. Yeah. They're all smoking theaters.
Yeah. But you know what? You can get a great goddamn $5 milkshake there. So
yeah.
All right. Well, shall we move on to our static episodes this week?
Let's do it.
All right. So first up is Where the Rubber Meets the Road, the final appearance of Specs and Trapper. Very thankfully,
they're back. I thought they were gone. They're not.
We're very appreciative it's the final episode for them, but we're also sad to say that it's the final episode of Rubber Band Man, and we'll get into whether it does him justice. But quick recap of what happens in the episode. So in this case, it's good old Specs and Trapper hire another bang baby called Tarmac to steal a fusion engine from Alva Industries and create a doomsday weapon, the Disaster Matrix. Great name. So while trying to stop Specs and Trapper from holding the city ransom, Static discovers that Adam, aka Rubber Band Man, has dyslexia, and Static helps him overcome his insecurities to save the day. So, Cameron, this is an episode. I feel like we've come across a lot of episodes that you've been just talking about this entire time, and we actually
Yeah.
get to them, and I'm always curious. How did this hold up for you? Did it hold up to the wonder that has existed in your brain for this last 4 years we've been doing the podcast?
No, not even a little bit. I mean, this episode is fine. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to say it's probably the best Specs and Trapper episode.
I mean, that is the lowest bar possible, though.
Yeah. I was so mad when they called it the Disaster Matrix. I'm like, oh god, I hate them so much.
It's unclear what the Disaster Matrix does exactly. It's powered by this super high tech fusion engine that has a lot of energy, and I guess it's so powerful that they can just do targeted natural disasters.
Yeah, it sounded like targeted earthquakes.
Yeah.
Which, like, fucking bring it on, asshole. We've been dealing with that this week. There was an earthquake that hit California this week, and that's why I made that joke.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was like at 6 a.m., and everyone was more upset that it woke them up than an actual earthquake.
Did it wake you up?
It did.
Oh, it did. Was it that big?
Yeah, I mean, my bed was like full on shaking.
Oh, goddamn.
I was glad that I'm in the middle of packing, and so I just had taken everything off the walls and off the shelves, so nothing fell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty big. It was close. I don't want to say it was big. It was just very close to LA.
Oh, okay. Because that's what we need on top of everything else that's happening here.
Yeah, I do love in this episode. I love pointing out the very small dumb details.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon is dressed like they're going to a very fancy restaurant. And the menu, the thing they look at, the first thing on the menu is Gutbuster Burger for $5. And I'm like, that is the fancy restaurant right there.
Hey, you know what? It just goes to show how much she cares for Adam, And
That is true.
he puts in the effort. He dresses up nice every time he's going to see her. He's a gentleman.
He is a pop sensation who has his own like penthouse apartment. Is making
It's not a penthouse. He has like a nice condo, it looks like.
Okay, yeah, a nice condo. In what is supposed to be, Detroit.
Yeah.
So like it's costly to live in the city there. And he takes her to what is basically a corner diner.
Hey,
But you know what? I don't want to judge because
maybe that's their favorite spot too.
Yes.
Maybe that's the place they always go together.
Yeah. Because honestly, everything on that menu looked great to me. They had they had nachos, they had the big gut burger.
Cameron, you're just really missing junk food right now.
So much.
No, like I'm with you. I didn't think this was a great episode. It is probably the best Specs and Trapper episode, which is not saying much because I think we have actively excluded every other episode they've been in from our short list because they're such terrible, terrible villains. I think the biggest letdown of this episode is not even what it does or doesn't do with Rubber Band Man. It's just that his story ends here. Like, he was a character that had a really interesting arc right from the beginning, going from a villain to a struggling hero to a full-on hero, someone who's trying to also live a very public life. And he had a lot of time on screen the first 2 seasons and has had little to none since then. I mean, this is the first full episode where we even get him in his new character design.
Yeah.
And you just kind of feel like there were so many more stories they could have told with him, right? Like, he never learns who Virgil is. Like, how interesting would it have been to put that dynamic in place where Adam discovers that Virgil is Static, and beyond whatever rivalry they used to have, it puts him in this weird position of trying to decide whether he has to tell Sharon or not.
Exactly.
There's a lot of stuff they could have done, and they didn't do it. And I'm glad they give him something to do here, because this episode is the PSA for dyslexia, and I think it actually handles that side of things really, really well. It does feel like they sort of shoehorned Rubber Band Man into that role, though. I was curious on how you felt about that, about how they treat him and his dyslexia in this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I don't know who else they could really do it with, especially this late in the show.
Yeah.
I don't think they can introduce a new hero or a new, classmate in at this point.
Yeah, I guess they had to attach it to a character we already knew and had an affinity for. It just kind of feels like it's a little bit world breaking in some sense, you know,
Hmm.
because so the examples we see of Adam's dyslexia is, Virgil and Richie are hanging out at his place, and they notice that he never opens up any of his fan mail. We see that when he goes to read the menu at brunch with Sharon, that all the words get jumbled up and he can't read the TV across the street. And like the kind of the big moment in the episode is they're trying to prevent Tarmac from escaping Alva Industries, and he can't figure out which button says, close on it, right? Because all the letters keep getting jumbled up. And just given how capable that character has proven to be in so many capacities to the rest of the series, you kind of feel like the extreme version of dyslexia that he has would have caused more problems for him in all of his other appearances.
Right. And there was an aspect they played into for a second, but I would have loved to explore this more, because I have a couple of friends with dyslexia,
Hmm.
and they're all very musically talented.
Okay.
And so I don't know if there's like an exact correlation between those two,
Hmm.
but I think him, like, open up on him playing piano and someone like putting sheet music in front of him, and he's like, like, no, I got it, I have it in my head already.
Yeah.
And it's like, they do. I think it is smart, especially this is a kids show, which we have to continuously remind ourselves
Hmm.
that they do have to kind of ham-fist it a little bit and really just put it in the TV of like,
Yeah.
he can't read right. But I think they could have done a few like subtle things to show, like, like, because I couldn't read, I chose music, and that's always worked for me.
Hmm.
Why do I need to go back and try something else when this is obviously leading to success?
Yeah. That would have been a nice little nod to throw in that, and they make reference to it, that he's been really successful, including in music, in spite of this. But maybe if they had just pushed that note a little bit harder and made that feel like a really pronounced element of the episode, it would have been like a nice upswing on the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. There's a side scene which I love so much, and we've talked about these things before.
Oh, I think you know where you're going with this.
It's when we see Tarmac go to the villain bar.
Yes, the Bang Baby bar.
The Bang Baby. I want just a full episode in the Bang Baby bar.
Mm-hmm.
Just make it a bottle episode. You can do it similar to Almost Got 'Em.
Yep.
But I just want to see, because you see Armadillon
Mm-hmm.
playing pool with Tarmac, and in the background you see Shiv and Onyx.
Mm-hmm.
And I just let me live there. Let me live there for 20 minutes and just see the conversation that's going on. Like the rotating door. I mean, like, it's similar to, like, I want a full episode in Arkham.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Like because it's that shot where it's all the villains watching the TV together in Arkham.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I just want to be in that, like, the entertainment room.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, we've had a couple like really interesting locations over the course of all the shows and never really explored them. Like, you're right, it would have been amazing to see an episode of BTOS set just exclusively within Arkham. But you're right, I feel like they absolutely could have gotten away with doing a Almost Got 'Em homage. Like, the thing is, we're 10 years on now from Batman animated series. Like, that show clearly has a legacy because we're continuing to watch it. Like, they could have done it in a way that would not have felt like a ripoff, but as like a callback to that. And I think Static would have been a great way to do it, because you do have a pretty good rogues gallery. They make attempts to give them backstories, but that would have been a good way to do a little bit more background on Hot Streak. Like in the episode with them recently where they get handcuffed together, we were wondering, like, hey, like, why can't we get more about him? Why can't we get an episode that really focuses on his backstory? Pick 3-4 villains, give them each 3-4 minute long little story, giving a little bit of highlight of what their lives are like.
Well, and also we have to remember that, like, all these people kind of knew each other before the Big Bang. Like, they were either in the same gang or in a rival gang.
Yeah, some of them were brothers, and it's never brought up.
Some of them were brothers sometimes. But like, bring that in. Like, we post Big Bang, we never see like the gang lines.
Yeah.
which I mean, it's a kid's show. I get it. But, you know, like, have an episode where Ebon and Onyx are like, this is my turf. And he's like, turf doesn't exist after this. Like, it's all up in the air.
I think sometimes we just have too high of expectations. Like, I think it's weird because Static occupies this strange space of being a show that you and I are both really excited to get to, because in our minds it held up really well and stood out amongst the rest. And I think that still proved to be true as we're going through it. But I also think maybe it wasn't as sophisticated as we remember, and probably is because when it aired it was super sophisticated.
Yeah.
But now, by comparison, we're looking for the sort of like deeper storytelling we get out of a Young Justice. I think is.
I was gonna say Young Justice is what changed us, and it's really changed the storytelling of superhero shows.
Yeah, and I think those that Static Shock is a proto version of that. I think the DNA is there, the attempts are there, but it's just not as much as we expected it to be. And you know, like I think even this episode, you know, you and I are focused on a lot of it being the last Rubber Band Man episode because, as we've said repeatedly, he's the best superhero in all of the DCAU.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, their main focus here was on telling an episode about dyslexia. And I think they do a good job with it. I think they do a good job visualizing what that's like for someone who has dyslexia. I don't have it, so I don't know specifically, but sort of the way that they portray it on screen, you can understand why it would be hard for someone who has it to read. And, you know, they do a nice job of pointing out that it takes work and that's bad, but like it's worth putting in the effort to try and overcome that. And, you know, the fact that Adam is really embarrassed by it, and he's embarrassed as, you know, Virgil, or I guess Static specifically, discovers it. But he's appreciative when Static doesn't say anything to Richie, even though Richie is getting in Rubber Band Man's face for messing up because his dyslexia is getting in the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would have liked to see Static push back a little bit on Richie, or just try and divert the conversation away and to be we'll call like an active ally rather than a passive one. But I'm glad they did this episode. I think it's worth, you know, highlighting this because a lot of kids do have it, and I think a lot of kids don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think it's worth going so far as to have the little PSA moment at the end, which they've only done once before, and that was for, you know, the episode Jimmy, you know, revolving around gun violence. And I'm glad that they put effort in on this one.
Yeah, I mean, when they did the back-to-back pose in the episode, I was so pumped.
I mean,
like, wow, they did it.
Is any cartoon PSA really complete without a back-to-back pose?
Finger guns.
That's true.
It's one or the other.
That's true. If they did two of them, it would have been way too much.
Yeah. And then I want to see if I can find the project file. But back in college, we watched a video, and then we had a project where we had to make a font for dyslexic people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they kind of talked about, and they go over it a little bit in this, where they have a hard time reading like B and D and Q and P,
Mm-hmm.
and all the letters that kind of look similar.
Yeah.
Because for quick design knowledge, every letter falls in 4 shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were trying, like, how do you break out of that to make it more legible? And funny enough, like, Comic Sans was a game changer for dyslexic people. And
really,
while people love to make fun of it because it's so ugly, like, because there's no consistency in the letters, it makes it easier for dyslexic people to distinguish each individual letter in order.
I never would have thought of that, but that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so I don't know if that was the main reason every school used it through 2011 for everything. But now they have an excuse.
Yeah, now there's a real reason to do it.
Yeah. So anything with like inconsistent lettering is a lot easier for dyslexic people to read.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really cool. You know, it's nice to see that the design can come through and help in that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap here, I want to talk about Rubber Band Man. Is there anything else you would want to have seen out of that character in this show?
I mean, I think you hit it right on with, I wanted him to learn Virgil's identity. I wouldn't want a breakup episode. I feel like that would be just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because they're like a good, I mean, they're a couple to look up to. They have fights. They are happy together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were for Rubber Band Man still being the best person in the DCAU. They were very realistic and they were very human.
Yeah.
Maybe like an episode where him and Pops hang out.
But honestly, that's what I would have loved to see. I don't necessarily even needed more Rubber Band Man specific episodes. I wanted to just see him peppered throughout the show as another regular cast member. In the same way that, we got 3 episodes with Shebang, and they always were like teasing the idea of her being part of the group, but then never really paid off anywhere. I wanted that here. Like we had that one moment in one of the episodes where it was,
in the coma episode.
The coma episode. Yeah, exactly. Where it was like the whole family was there together, and including Pop's girlfriend, including Adam. I wanted more of that. I wanted him to really feel like a regular part of that family. I wanted him to get, like a full-on supporting character spot over the course of the show, become a series regular. I think that just would have made it feel a little bit more grounded and inclusive.
I agree. I did have one question for you, because we love to make fun of Specs and Trapper.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Do you think they would be better Gotham villains?
No. They would be better anywhere else. They should not exist at all.
Well, I'm imagining, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone like from the tech side of Wayne Tech has become a villain, have they?
Off the top of my head, not that I can think of, but
like imagine like if Lucius hired interns.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to say that. If like Lucius's team that makes the bat gadgets, one of them just goes rogue. And he knows how the bat suit works. He knows how to deactivate all the stuff.
I think that episode idea would have been interesting to see. Like someone at Wayne Tech kind of discovering this cache of high-tech gadgetry and maybe not fully making the connection that it's Batman, because then you introduce the idea of like, oh, another person discovered Batman's secret identity. You have to resolve how they, sort that out.
They could be selling it to Batman. It doesn't have to be Bruce.
That's true. Yeah.
It's like under the table dealings.
Yeah. But I think that would have been interesting to see someone, exploit access to all that sort of technology. But I don't think that episode would have worked if it was Specs and Trapper. Look, the only thing that's good about their inclusion to the series is that it meant recurring work for both Michael Rosenbaum and Patton Oswalt, who we both adore on many, many levels. And I think
just not this one.
And look, I think they do a good job playing those characters. I've said before, I love their, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd sort of banter they have back and forth. That being said, they're awful and I hate them. And I don't, I would have been perfectly happy to cut them out of all of the DCAU entirely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then why don't we move on to our next episode, Linked, a very appropriately named episode because not only does it feature 2 characters with a secret history, but that secret history is that they derived superpowers from, yes, a chain link fence.
Yes, this is the 3rd Shaq episode. I was very excited to see it.
Yes. So this episode sees professional football player Dulé Jones come back to Dakota for a big game, and while there, he reconnects with Sharon, who used to be his counselor. And Dulé is attacked by a new Bang Baby named, yes, Chainlink.
Chainlink.
And we
right
learn,
on the nose.
Yep, very on the nose. We learn that Dulé is also a Bang Baby and is being blackmailed by Chainlink, or he will reveal the truth to the world and ruin Dulé's career. Dulé eventually reveals his powers at the big football game in order to stop Chainlink. So, Cameron, what did you think about this Doc Ock episode?
It was a great Doc Ock episode. I'll tell you that. I'm okay. This is slightly tangential. I'm surprised they didn't get real football players for this one.
Oh yeah, because it is another sports-based episode. They're really trying to emphasize the idea here that superheroes can also be athletes and vice versa.
And also that Pops was just a fucking all-star back in his day.
Yes. See, I love stuff like that. I love that we keep getting these little hints of the fact that Pops is actually this like very like complex, textured individual with this like totally unsuspecting like history. Like, if you look at the course of the series, we find out that, one, he was best friends with Shaquille O'Neal because he, like, was a wicked basketball player back in the day. He is also best friends with a major football player here, voiced by the great late Michael Clark Duncan. We discovered he was a huge comic book nerd. We also discovered like Pop's got game, right? Like as we recall, like his girlfriend was quite lovely. So
Yeah.
people underappreciate what a unique and complex individual Pops is. What was his nickname? It was the Streak.
Streak.
Yeah. Streak. Which is fantastic. But yeah, so in this episode, both Chainlink and Dulé have a Bang Baby power where they have 8 metal arms coming out of their backs.
It's definitely not Doc Ock. Because they change it. Because for some reason, and I don't know why, but I've noticed it a lot in recent villains, everyone suddenly also has disintegration as their power.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. So in this episode, they have these mechanical arms, which is an odd Bang Baby power to have because it feels more technological than mutation based, or it feels like it'd be weird.
I was expecting like this to be like a gear centered episode.
Yeah, it's odd to think that humans can mutate into having metal arms.
I guess if you fuse with a chain link fence, you can.
Yeah, because that's what we learn about them is that they were at the Big Bang, obviously, because at the time, even though Dulé told Sharon that he had separated himself from gang life, he was there at the Big Bang. And he and his friend were trying to escape from the gas. And as they were hopping over the chain link fence, the villain, who later became known as Chainlink, fell into the gas and got a greater dose, but basically they were on this fence and then they absorbed the fence. And so Chainlink has the ability to absorb metal, which we see happen multiple times, but it isn't actually explained he can do it until the very end of the episode.
Yeah. And so their solution is dropping a bunch of metal on him to try and knock him out.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And it works somehow.
There's a line at the beginning which made me think that Dulé would have a different power.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about how great he is. And they said it's almost like sometimes he has springs in his feet. And I was expecting an episode where you had a Bang Baby use their power for personal gain.
Yeah.
And, like him having a power that actually makes him better at a sport.
Mm-hmm.
And have this be like a steroid homage episode.
I was kind of expecting that too. Like I was definitely not expecting him to
also have 6 metal arms protruding from his back.
Like, I'll be honest, like when he does reveal those arms, because the big difference is that he can hide his arms, whereas Chainlink can't. But when he reveals, I was like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting this. Because you're right, I was expecting it to be something where like he, has like a milder version of like Kangor's powers. Like he can like run fast or leap far, or exactly that whatever he has is just enough to give him an edge. And it introduces that idea of whether that is okay. Like, is he, is this him taking advantage of a situation in an unfair manner? And I think it would have opened up an interesting conversation, like the sort of plot thread that Dash has in the first Incredibles movie of like, is it fair for him to use his power sort of thing? And I think that would have been a much more interesting story here, because I think otherwise...
And it would also make more sense for why he's kicked out of the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, he cheated, but his current power, they kick him out just because he's a Bang Baby.
Yeah, which...
Like, he's never used his power in a game.
No, and I feel like that they should have spent some time talking about that. Like, why should he get kicked out just because he's a Bang Baby? Like, you could make the argument that he's dangerous, like having those arms could put other players in jeopardy, which I guess is fair, but it's at least a conversation that has shades of gray to it that would have been a cool topic to explore. And
send it. There is a facility learning to get rid of Bang Baby powers. Send him there. Have the NFL pay for him, because he's basically like the all-star rookie.
Yeah.
And so the NFL would want to do what they can, because he's kind of the current face of the NFL. Like, if there was a Madden game, he would be on the cover of 2004 Madden.
Yeah, it's again, I think we're just looking for too much out of these episodes. I think we like...
Damn you, Young Justice. How dare you write your episodes so good, we expect so much more out of everything else.
No, we really do. But I mean, I think that does speak to the potential this show has and how cool it would be to see them tackle it again in some capacity. And actually get a chance to like approach the stories from like a modern, more sophisticated storytelling perspective.
I have a sophisticated question for you dealing with this episode.
Okay.
What do you think is a fair blackmail percentage?
Oh,
because 90-10 feels very rough. Like that's a hard no as a 90-10. But if we're talking like a 70-30, I'm up for discussion.
Yeah, 70-30 seems a little more reasonable. I feel like if you're in a 90-10 situation, there are obviously people who can live off of only 10% of their income, but I think
especially if he's a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
He has that sick Hummer.
Yeah, the more money you make, the more money you need to keep going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always that possibility. I think the 90-10 might be a little bit extreme. But I also think that, Chainlink, I don't think he's thinking very rationally.
He's being a little greedy. Chainlink, let me be your financial advisor for your next blackmail session. You can't go in so hard, Chainlink. You gotta leave the table open for a discussion.
I think he may have just created yet another like niche supervillain role in the DCAU is the blackmailer's financial consultant.
Yes.
/ business manager.
It's someone who just lost their realtor's license.
The thing is, though, you could actually make pretty good money if you operated a ring of blackmailers. Like if you actually put in like the legwork to do that, like
the mob.
Yes,
you're just talking about the mob. We've just invented the mafia.
But I'm saying like specifically just blackmail. But I mean, let's be honest, like because the mob is very differentiated in their criminal portfolio. But like any good enterprise, eventually you would work your way out of just being blackmail. So yeah, you're right. I just created the mob.
we just did. Hey, you give me 10% of your profit, and I'll make sure nothing bad happens. That is a form of blackmail.
Yes. Okay, fine. Maybe we're not that clever. Like we're being maybe a little bit harsh in this. I think this episode does some stuff well, though. I think it gives a lot of screen time to Sharon in a really nice way.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds us too that she is also a counselor in her own right. And she's had a positive effect on people, and in the same way that we've seen former pupils of Pops grow up and become really successful. We saw one of Sharon's, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like this episode is pretty well animated, considering that the movement around those tentacles could be really complicated. This could look really shitty, and I thought it looked pretty good actually from my perspective.
There's one shot which I want to highlight because I loved it so much, because I wrote it while the fight was happening, like, oh man, I wish like the other football players would come in and help, and they do, but there's the moment where they like all run in at the same time. If you look in the corner, there's one guy that turns around and runs up the stands.
Yes, I saw that.
And I'm like, bless you animators for putting that little nugget in for us,
because that moment gave me like a double take.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, because initially, it's a big football game at the end. It's the climax of the episode.
The All-Star game.
The All-Star game, yeah. Chainlink is fighting Dulé. Static and Gira, they're helping. And we see a bunch of people leave the stadium, so we kind of assume the stadium's evacuated, and all of a sudden we just see so the football players decide like, oh hey, let's jump in on this fight. And I just went, what? Like what? Yeah. Really? We're having the football players join the fight too? And then
yeah, they're also superheroes, Chris. That's what we've learned in the past 4 seasons.
Of course. But in that moment, I also saw the guy in the background. I went, wait, what? Again? And I had to rewind to double check. But yeah, one guy just like fucking ups and leaves, which I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Like, look, why would you ever want to jump into a fray like that and get injured when that is like your entire career on the line?
Yeah, and that's my thought with Dulé, thank you. Is I assume with how young he looks, he went straight from high school to pro.
Yeah, he did.
And so retiring as a rookie, so he's only played 1 season.
Oh, poor guy.
He has no future.
No, and all those endorsements are going to go away.
Yeah, and so I was expecting something from the other football player we see kind of pop in and out of like, we'll find a place for him. Like he'll be a trainer, he'll be an assistant coach.
Yeah.
It's like he'll still be on the payroll, because like we can't be that discriminatory about just a guy what about all the other guys that can just happen to grow 6 tentacles out of their back?
Yeah.
Like,
We have to have room for all of them. But like, you're right. This episode just completely, moves past the consequences of the outcome of it. This was a point I really, really drilled down last week when it came to Eddie finding out Static's secret identity. But it's something I noticed this show tends to do often, which is basically completely ignore the wrap up. Like, there are lingering questions or there are consequences due to the fallout of the events of these episodes, and they just don't address them. And it literally would just take a line. Like, to your point, it would just take a line of, Rashid the Rocket Randall, the other football player, being like, hey, look, you're going to lose your endorsement deals. Like, you're no longer able to play, but, you at the end of the day, like, you tried to do the right thing and you were here to support us, and we're going to support you in turn. Like, we're going to make sure.
Yeah, because without that, what is the moral of this episode? Is like, don't keep secrets?
Yeah, keep your secrets, and when someone tries to blackmail you, kill them so your secrets don't get out.
Yes, find your version of Ace Chemicals.
Yes. Yes.
There's that shot, which I don't understand, where the vat of acid pours around Chainlink, but it forms a perfect circle around him with nothing like stopping the acid from hitting him.
Nope.
And the floor falls beneath him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if he put his tentacles up, and it's like, you learn that's the thing that can actually hurt him.
Yeah.
Like, he loses 2 of his tentacles, and now the fight scene is a little more even because you have a person who's always been using their power but is now weakened versus someone who almost never uses their power and has to kind of figure out how to use it combatively.
Mm-hmm. I think we're expecting too much from this, Cameron.
Shut up. Let me live my fanfic.
Yeah.
Let me live in that 2003 Hummer with a DVD player in it.
Oh, it's got a DVD, it's got TV, HD TV, it's got everything in it, man.
Mm-hmm. The Home and Garden Network.
Yep. No, but there were a few little things here and there I liked. I loved that the score for this kind of does their own version of the NFL fanfare.
Oh, I didn't even pay attention to that. Yeah, that's awesome.
That was kind of fun. I love that we have multiple occasions of Richie and Virgil having to run away and to go change into their costumes, which somehow they keep stored underneath their normal clothes at all times.
Oh, okay. Question for you. I just thought of this.
Yes.
What if more of a thought than a question? What if this episode takes place prior to Hoop Squad, and this moment is what inspires the NBA to create their superhero team?
No.
Yes.
No.
Chris.
No.
Yes. They're like, oh shit! Like, what if someone attacks an NBA game? How are we going to defend ourselves without our own Bang Baby?
Yes.
I know.
You know what? Yeah, Cameron, you're right. You're absolutely right. The NBA looked at this and went, what happens if a Bang Baby or any of the other metas that permeate this world happen to attack an NBA game? I know what we'll do.
We'll create a super team of NBA players from across the South and one on the West Coast.
Exactly. We will turn 4 players alone into superheroes and really hope that if something happens, it'll happen in a game.
It's probably going to happen in Texas, so let's put 2 there.
We hope it happens in a game that one of the players is attending. We also hope that whoever attacks them can be bested by their really, really specific powers that only work if they can work as a team.
Yes. Should we give one of these to Shaq? No, he's a superhero already without powers.
Yes. God damn it. You know what? It's in line with the sort of logic that would have created the Hoop Squad in the first place. So fine, Cameron, I'll let you have your fanfic.
Do you think that every sport has their own secret superhero team?
Yes.
Or
they just stopped the show before we got to see all the rest of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because my new thought is, what if the Hoop Squad recruits Dule? And he's the 5th member, because we talked about you can never have a team of 4 except the Fantastic Four. You always need 5 or 3.
Yes, you cannot have a superhero team of 4 except for the most famous superhero team, which happens to have 4 people. You're absolutely right.
It's so famous that no one else can do it. That's how famous they are. Name me another team of 4.
I can't.
Exactly.
I can't. It's just a Fantastic Four. That's true. They're mostly trios.
Or
Yeah,
fivesomes.
or fivesomes. Yes.
Or however many people are in the X-Men.
It's a rotating roster.
Yeah.
No, there absolutely is. And for me, I just would have really loved to see whatever the professional golf superhero would have been.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Let's be honest, it just would have been Tiger Woods, but he can just turn into a tiger.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like at the time, because this would have been an awesome episode. I think it would actually fit well in this universe. You have the tennis superhero. It's just the Williams sisters.
Oh, Wonder Twin Williams.
Yeah, and you find out Pops dated one of them.
Yep, I'm on board.
Like that's his connection.
I'm absolutely on board. I mean, to be honest, I would watch any version of the Williams sisters have the Wonder Twin powers.
Yeah,
Like
right?
they are so incredible. I would absolutely watch that. I think it'd be highly entertaining.
Yeah, like what other sports do you have? This is a bonus episode in the making.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Mhm.
All right. Any other thoughts on this guy here?
I think we covered it all.
All right. Well, then we're gonna do in lieu of notes from friends, not much this week. So we're gonna do a Cam's question corner, and it turns out unintentional segue here if we're talking about other superhero teams. Cameron, what's your question this week?
Yes, I posed to you, what is the best fake superhero team or superhero individual in a non-superhero franchise?
Right. Yeah. It's something we've talked about before, that you get a lot of superhero episodes in non-superhero shows, especially in animation.
Yeah, so some examples would be like the Crimson Chin from Fairly Odd Parents, Monkey from Dexter's Lab.
Mm-hmm. Also, the what's the other team from the Dexter's Lab?
Justice Friends.
The Justice Friends. Yeah.
Yes, Major Glory, Valhalla, and the Incredible Krunk.
Because I did a little bit of research trying to track down the best ones. This is where the website tvtropes.org came in.
There's a lot. I was
handy.
shocked at how many exist.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I kind of knew the stuff that you were likely to go for, and so when I went through my list, I figured anything Butch Hartman was basically just going to be you, either Butch Hartman or Genny Tarkovsky.
You know, I didn't list any of them in mind.
Oh, okay. Well, this will be interesting then. I ended up going for two examples from South Park.
Coon and Friends.
Yes, one, absolutely that group, because those episodes are so funny, and the fact that it's all just a meta commentary on superhero franchises is brilliant. And I've never played the Fractured But Whole video game, but I've heard it's pretty good. It's pretty entertaining. But then,
did you play the first one?
No, I didn't play the Lord of the Rings one either.
Okay, I played that one. Was so much fun.
Yeah, I've heard they're great. I've heard they're just super fantastic games. I mean, South Park is so sharp. So I had them, but I also had to put a shout out for the Super Best Friends. So it's from a really early episode, but it's a bunch of religious figures. So it's Jesus, Moses, Joseph Smith, and Seaman, who's an Aquaman parody.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I totally forgot about this episode.
Yeah, I think if I recall, they end up fighting a massive Abraham Lincoln statue, right? Like I think the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, like the statue comes alive and they end up having to fight it.
That sounds about right.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I had to go with the South Park ones, because with anything else South Park, they are able to make a sincere version of these things while also just beautifully lampooning them at the same time. So that was my shout. But who did you have?
I have a couple here. As you expect. I asked a couple people, and from the sounds of it, the one that was said the most was one I didn't even think about, honestly. Was everyone said Quail Man from Doug.
Oh, Quail Man.
Yeah, Quail Man is a great hero. Even though we never really see him do anything. He's just like so iconic in his look.
Yeah. That belt around the forehead, it's classic.
Yeah. And the underwear on the outside. I have three that I don't think you would know, and then one you definitely know because we've brought it up before.
Okay.
So the first one I want to talk about is Team Go from Kim Possible.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we learn that Shigo is part of a superhero family called the Goes, where there's he go, she go, me go, and we go.
Classic.
And those episodes are so much fun. And if you haven't watched them, the second episode I think is the funniest version, because they're fighting the mathematician, who's just a guy who uses math to beat his villains. And they have to use Ron's dad, who's an actuator. Is that the job title?
I don't know. What does he do?
He's basically just like an accountant.
Okay, an actuary? I don't know. Let's call him an accountant.
That's his title.
Yeah.
He's an accountant. He uses his accounting skills to beat the math villain.
Love it.
And it's so funny. Yeah, they're great, and they all have great personalities.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think my favorite one, and it's definitely the one I've watched the most, is a character named the Great Saiyan Man from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, okay, yeah, I definitely wouldn't know that. Not know that.
It's most people consider it the worst 4 episodes of Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, great.
But I love them so much. It's right after they defeat like the main villain, and it's these 4 filler episodes where the main character's son, Gohan, goes to school, a normal human school, but he can't help being a hero. So he dons the title Great Saiyan Man to try and stop crime while being a normal schoolboy. And it's so funny and so out of character for the show. I love it so much.
Cameron, I feel like there are a great many things that apply when you use the phrase. Most people consider it the worst blank, but I love it.
Yes. Because there's an episode, because he's never interacted with the humans before.
Okay.
And so there's a part of the episode where he's in PE with his school, and he's like trying to play baseball like a normal person, and he just he can fly. So he just barely jumps, and he jumps like 6 feet in the air to catch a ball. He's like, "Hey, I did it. I sit like a normal person this time."
God damn it.
There's another one that I wasn't thinking about till someone else brought it up for me. You never really see him fight, but he's just a character that exists in this world. And it's Senior Fusion from Recess.
Oh, I vaguely recall this.
Senior Fusion is their basically Superman, or I think what he's really parodying is Radioactive Man,
right?
From Simpsons, who's another one we can put on this list. Radioactive Man and Fallout Boy, not the band.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I had never thought about that before.
Yeah, there's probably one of my favorite episodes of Recess. There's a Senior Fusion movie coming out, and TJ wants to see it opening day.
Okay.
And he convinces all the teachers that it's like for academic reasons. You learn about like science watching this. You learn about culture, filmmaking, having a good argument for a 4th grader. But Principal Prickly refuses to let them go see it. And so they have a trivia contest because they're both huge Senior Fusion fans. And it's the two of them just like rattling off facts about their favorite superhero. And it's so like heartwarming to see the two characters that are like, they have such a great dynamic in the show of like being opposed sides, but Prickly hates being the villain.
Yeah.
But he has to be the villain. And like, I love that character dynamic so much.
I vaguely recall this episode, actually.
It's a great episode.
That's pretty fun. It's really fun.
And then the last one I'll mention is the one that I think you would remember. Action League Now from Kablam.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's your deep cut right there.
I had forgotten every word you just said until you just said them in that order. Oh my god. Action League Now from Kablam. Please remind us all about
toys, the superpowered toys that all have the worst powers. You have the Flesh, who is naked but super strong.
Yes.
You have Thunder Girl, who's the only one who has like a real power. She can fly. The Stinky Diver, who I love, who's just like a scuba diver.
Yeah.
Melt Man, who has the power to melt. Um, those are the main ones, and they have a couple other characters that pop in and out. The chief,
Oh my god, I
who I think is just a normal person.
I think so. I had so forgotten about this, but you're right. Yeah, I think it started with all that and then it spun off into Kablam. Oh my god, I forgot about Kablam. Like, because Kablam was basically like what, a precursor to Robot Chicken in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, Kablam had great animated short. I wouldn't consider it because they didn't parody.
Oh,
It was
okay,
all
yeah.
originals.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was an animated sketch show, basically.
Oh my god, do you remember Snick?
Oh yeah, I remember Snick.
Cameron, you have started me on a deep, deep Wikipedia hole that I'm not sure I can escape from now.
Yeah, so for if you need some like nice shows to look back to, Sniz and Fondue has some pretty great great episodes. Action League Now is obviously there. Prometheus and Bob is probably the one that most people remember.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
the two aliens who are very like Abbott and Costello esque.
All I know is that if you're looking for a good starting point to go on a nostalgia binge, just start off by going to the tvtropes.org link for superhero episodes. And in fact, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Because you'll be reminded of how many shows you watched as a kid, both animation and live action, had their one-off superhero episodes.
Yeah. And we just barely scratched the surface of these.
Oh, there's
Obviously, there's the Crimson Chin,
so many.
Crash Nebula, Ultra Lord, Justice Friends, Monkey. The entire Justice Friends expanded, and they had a full. As I mentioned before, my favorite kind of episode is the tournament episode where you have all the heroes fighting each other for the title of strongest.
Oh yeah. But no, I love this question. I mean, like you said, we just scratched the surface, and maybe we'll do a more expanded version of this down the line as a bonus episode. But this one especially, I would really love to hear people's favorite versions of this sort of thing. Like, what was the knockoff superhero team or the non-superhero team you remember from your childhood? Yeah, so let us know. Twitter at Tim Talk Pod. Would love to hear people's responses to this. I think it's such an interesting question.
Expanding it a little bit, there's a couple episodes where the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Jimmy Neutron, where the characters become the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, there's a lot of those too, where like characters, there's like the in-universe superhero teams, which are either like actual superheroes or oftentimes they're like TV superheroes, and then you're right, there are episodes where people get superpowers in otherwise non-superpowered shows.
Yeah. And those episodes are great. The Fairly Odd Parents one I would cite is probably my favorite of that trope.
Futurama does a great one.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But yeah, write into us and let us know.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
This is my favorite question so far.
I know. This is a really,
I want
really
to keep
good
talking
one.
about it.
This is a really good one. But Cameron, what are your bat plugs for this week?
So I have a very unusual bat plug, and it's something that I didn't even expect myself to enjoy as much as I did.
Okay.
But there's a YouTuber named Jenny Nicholson who does amazing videos. She does kind of explainer videos, video essay kind of things. She did an hour-long, I don't even know how to classify this, explanation of the Brony fandom.
Oh, my sweet Lord.
And kind of the history of BronyCon.
Okay.
And the history of the My Little Pony experience.
Yeah.
And it is so fascinating how much it has changed and how it even became what it is.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go into it because it's so fascinating.
Because I don't really know anything about My Little Pony to begin with, but especially not the Brony culture. But isn't there even like a dark side of the Brony culture in the same way that you get like a lot of toxic fans around DC and Star Wars, a lot of like toxic Brony fans out there?
Yeah. So Brony culture was born from 4chan. So kind of like
that explains
the
it.
worst of the trolls. And it was meant as like to make fun of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would watch it to basically like harvest memes from it.
Yeah.
And like who can have like the funny. So it got this audience of just making fun of the show, which then turned into like people not understanding that the fandom is satirical. And so watching the show and actually enjoying it, which then brought in the real asshole fandom
Mm-hmm.
of you had people coming in who like thought they knew more. You know, it's exactly what you expect to come out of this. The people who come in and expect they know more than everyone else in the fandom, and looking down on people that like different eras, because My Little Pony's been around since the 60s.
Yeah.
They're like, if you don't like this version, then you're wrong and stupid. And, you know, the show, basically, the show writers were not expecting this big surge, and they started changing the way the show was written, because it's obviously written for young girls.
Mm-hmm.
They started writing in all these meta jokes and content for this now adult male audience, which just pushed it even more into, you know, these asshole fans thinking that they own the show.
Oh my God. What insanity.
Yeah, it is so interesting to, and she is someone who is not only looking at it from the outside, but she was a content creator in the community. Like she made a parody series of My Little Pony, and it got like huge numbers and views, and she wrote like original songs, and so she was
Wow.
she was an invited guest to a lot of the shows.
Yeah.
So she's looking at it from all perspectives of how it's changed. It like, I turned it on, kind of just like something I was gonna have on in the background, but then by the end of it, I was like so dedicated to the story she was telling.
You're right. I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
That's a
it's crazy.
It's a deep esoteric cut there, but it sounds fascinating.
Yeah. What about you? What have you been spending your time with?
So I do want to give a shout out to Batman Brave and the Bold. I think I've plugged it before, but I'm trying to burn through all the DC universe content I can with the expectation that it's all going to go away before too long.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
fair.
I just finished season 2 of that show, and I've talked about it a little bit before about how impressed I was by that show and how I was very reluctant to watch it when it first aired because it seemed like it was super kid focused, and I've come to realize it's far from it. It's actually very sophisticated. But there's a couple.
You just finished the dark streak of episodes.
I did, yeah, yeah. There's like a surprising number of like really emotional character deaths. I won't say who, so it's not a spoiler. But there's a few other
It's
episodes.
Aquaman. It's always Aquaman.
Outrageous. But I do want to make a few specific episode shout outs. One is Chill of the Night, which is really amazing. It's one where Spectre and the Phantom Stranger are basically in a wager over the soul of Batman, essentially, and it essentially allows Batman to go back and interact with his parents. And I won't give too much away, but it has some really incredible, very poignant voice cameos from Batman history in there, and it's just a really good, touching episode. There's that. There,
It's written by Paul Dini too.
it is, yeah. It's absolutely excellent. There's that. There's the Knights of Tomorrow, which like jump forwards into the future and sees Bruce Wayne get married to Selena Kyle, and they have a son named Damian, and then like his struggle to inherit the role of Robin. It's really, really excellent, kind of exploring like what a future could look like. And then a totally out there episode is Batmite presents Batman's Strangest Cases.
Yes,
Which is like this.
I love Batmite.
Yes, it's like this fantastic triptych. So one of them is like a Mad Magazine style, like Batboy and Ruben. Another one is like a Japanese animation version of like a 1960s, like old style Japanese animation version of Batman. And then the last one is Batman Brave and the Bold meets Scooby-Doo, which they eventually made like a full movie out of. But this was just like a one-off thing they did, which just totally plays up a lot of the amusing little details that came with some of those old Scooby-Doo movie episodes. So it's a great show. Highly recommend it. I mean, it's all pretty much one-offs. There's a couple episodes that have multiple episode arcs, but for the most part you can kind of pick and choose as you go along. So highly recommend checking out those episodes, but just all of the show is fantastic. And then I had one other plug this week, which I thought was gonna be the weirdest thing on the show, but then you came in with your like brony culture documentary, which is
Got to keep it fresh.
my friend Ben sent me a YouTube video from this creator Ricky Downs III, and it's Hamilton but Muppets.
I've seen that.
It
yeah.
is astounding. It's all, like really impressive because I mean they basically just recreate all of the songs from from Hamilton, but
Hamilton.
they all do it in Muppet voices, and I think it's multiple people doing the impersonations, but they are really, really good. And unsurprisingly, Kermit, of course, plays Alexander Hamilton, and as they're doing the intro song, the first time you hear him say, Alexander Hamilton, it's
so off-putting.
I lost my shit. It's so funny. And then, of course, I had to skip forward and listen to Animal's rendition of King George's You'll Be Back. It is delightful and absurd and silly, and a very sincere and fun callback to anything Hamilton. I'm just worried now that I'm going to have a hard time taking the original seriously after listening.
Well, I was going to say there's another version. There's two other versions, one of which is actually very, very well done because it's done by a professional.
Yeah.
But someone did a version where they sang the entirety of Hamilton as if Adam Sandler was singing it.
Oh my God.
And it's so, I don't think I lasted more than 3 minutes. It's so hard to listen to because he does a great Adam Sandler impersonation.
Yeah.
But then the one that I love is Weird Al did a polka medley of Hamilton. Have you not heard it yet?
I will go look it up immediately.
Hamilton polka is so good.
I love Weird Al. Also, he makes a cameo appearance in that Strange Tales of Batman from Brave and the Bold.
He does.
Oh my. Okay, I got to go check those out.
Yes.
Yeah.
The polka version. Like everyone, please go look at the polka version because it's so funny.
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge how incredibly talented Weird Al is?
Yeah.
Like, it takes someone with incredible musical talent to be able to impersonate and parody so many different types of musical genres that he has, and to do them all so well and with such really heartfelt, creative lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to this day,
and for doing it for so long,
he's doing it forever. And
My Bologna came out in 1971.
Oh my God. Like, he's so good. Like, to this day, I still know the lyrics to The Saga Begins more so than I know the lyrics to the actual song American Pie.
Oh, same. Jerry Springer and
Yes.
in that version, what's even the real one again?
I don't remember.
It's been 1 week.
Oh, 1 week. Yeah. Grapefruit diet. Like, there are.
Yeah. I mean, because we even talked about this the other day. Like, the second album I bought on iTunes was Running with Scissors.
Yeah. And I had it on CD.
Yeah. I brought 3. I had just bought an iPod, or my mom had just bought me an iPod. I'll rephrase it. Thanks, Mom. That I took to Europe with me when I was in Europe for a month.
Mm-hmm.
And the only 3 albums I had, I'll say 4. One I'm not as keen on. But it was Poodle Hat, Running with Scissors, the High School Musical soundtrack.
Of course.
And then just to top it all off, the Dane Cook album.
Oh my God. It's fine, Cameron. It was a different time.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. You were a different man, aka a boy.
Yes.
It's fine.
But also, so little has changed.
Also, very true. Here we are still, 15 years later, still talking about how great Weird Al is, because let's be honest,
Exactly.
he is. But all right. Well, I think that does it for us this week.
Great. What am I to say?
I don't know what I was waiting for there. No, that does it for us this week. Thanks as always for listening. You can find us at Tim Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. Please send us your favorite superhero teams. Really want to hear your answers to that. And then you can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, and if you want to see my art, you can find that at Cameron.Dexter on Instagram. If you want to see my face, you can find that at CamDexter_adventures.
All right. Well, boom, boom, boom. That does it for us this week. We'll be back next week with Wet and Wild, another excuse for Cameron to constantly bring up H2 Olga instead of Aqua Maria.
Yes.
So we'll be covering that, and we'll be covering Kidnapped. And then after that, we'll have one more episode of
the
Static Shock
finale.
Lab. We are almost done here. Kind of sad to see it go.
Yeah.
But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
A superhero static shock.
Woot woot.
A superhero static shock.
Woot woot.